Thank you for tuning into Gods, Demons, and Magic. This is your host, Sri Sanchinandan Das. We're continuing to explore the Egyptian mysteries by Iamblichus. And in this ancient text, the Egyptian priest Abaman is answering the questions of the Greek philosopher Porphyry. In this particular section, Abaman is describing the invocation of various supernatural beings, what it's like when the gods are invoked through ritual, or the archangels or angels. What does it look like? What is the experience? What sort of benefits do they bestow upon you? What is their effect on your consciousness? And so we've discussed many so far, and today we're going to discuss the half-gods or demigods. And these are essentially, they are the product of a relationship between a god, one of the parents is a god and one of the parents is a human being. So, as we've said before, you'll see this in the stories of Hercules and Perseus and all of these great heroes, especially within the Greek tradition. And their purpose, as far as Abaman explains within the universe, is they provide guidance to mankind. They sort of invigorate mankind with divine values and an example of sort of striving upward in the human condition. And they're very much concerned with human affairs. So they really are like the manifestation of the quality of that particular god, their parent. They're almost like a piece of that god brought down into the form of a man. And so you may have thousands of generations of human beings, and human beings are very small creatures in universal affairs, very limited in our ability, limited in our intelligence, in our capacity, and limited in sort of giving inspiration towards that which is divine. And yet, when the gods come down and mate with a human, they sort of impart part of themselves within that human. And then that human or that half-god becomes a source of inspiration to humanity. And their activities then sort of pervade in the form of stories human society and provide guidance and upliftment and looking to them towards for moral virtue, as well as sort of, their stories carry down through generations the values of that people. So it's almost like a leader within that human society, which brings the quality of the god within that society and becomes an inspiration and a guide for future generations. And with all of these different supernatural beings, as they're invoked in a ritual, they all have their own way of kind of announcing their presence. With the gods, it's this brilliant, luminous, shining light, this divine fire, which overwhelms you and draws you into a kind of mystical vision. With the archangels, the individuals will be performing a divine drama, sort of in order to invoke them, some sort of ritual. And in the midst of that ritual, you'll see all sorts of luminous, shining lights start to appear, and they're moving around in harmony with the ritual. Like if the ritual initiates are dancing or something like that, then the spirits that accompany the archangels, all these lights and things like that, will start dancing in the midst of the ritual. They'll start moving with the ritual. Until finally you'll see, a retinue of angels appear, and then the archangel, and then there'll be other angels all surrounding them as servants. And they'll fill you with a great sense of their strength and the order that they create within the universe. And then you have the angels, of course. When they appear, they begin speaking. You'll hear voices in the midst of the ritual. And then with the daemons, they'll create some sort of alarming situation. The wind will blow the door open, or something will fall, the ritual implements will crash to the ground. There's something announcing their presence. So with the half-gods, it's quite dramatic. Usually there's an earthquake. The whole room starts shaking, and that means that a half-god has come. So each of these supernatural beings has its own sort of sense of qualities and mood. And really with the half-gods, the mood is one of power. It's tremendous power, and it's directed towards human affairs. So like with the daemons, they're concerned with that aspect of nature that they control. If they're a daemon dealing with romance in the opposite sex, then they will, as they come, then you'll feel saturated with that feeling of romance, that feeling of sort of the, like a running hand in hand with your boyfriend or girlfriend, through the fields in the middle of spring or something like that. Your heart will sort of open up and you'll sort of become saturated with the feeling of youthful pleasure in the association with the opposite sex, like a vision of spring. So with the, and with the archangels and the angels, similarly, that aspect of reality that they control, you'll kind of feel that. And with the gods, of course, you'll feel spiritual elevation or illumination because that is their particular forte. With the half-gods, you feel concern with human affairs. And not just here, they could be human affairs like in your particular life, or they could be human affairs of the entire empire or humanity in general, or, even humanity on a universal scale, like, where is humanity going? So they're, because they are sort of an incarnation of the qualities of the gods within human affairs, and they're very much concerned about mankind and the direction mankind is going. And they're similar in sense to the daemons, although whereas the daemons appear in all sorts of different forms, because there's all different varieties of daemons, and they'll appear, therefore, in very different ways, and oftentimes very big, oftentimes very small. The half-gods, they'll appear just like human beings. They just look like, a man or a hero. Like Hercules will appear, Perseus will appear, and he'll look like Perseus wearing his armor standing there before you. Except when they have a certain way of moving, like they have a very grand motion about them. They move in a very powerful way. They really exhibit a sense of like heroic power and chivalry, the might of a warrior, and he sort of moves in a very flashy way with swinging his cape around and things like that. So he exhibits a kind of warrior's virility. And there's a strong sense of nobility or royalty, like you're in the presence of a very royal personage. It's like you're there with a king or a mighty hero is right before you. And Abaman also mentions, in addition to the earthquakes, the noises echo. So, perhaps he's actually speaking or something. It's like a booming voice which is echoing around the room. And so, like the daemons, which sort of draw your attention into material matters, because that's where their concern is, the half-gods also draw your attention down into material matters. They're really concerned with practical things, practical material things, providing solutions and sort of like dealing with specific problems, especially when it comes to humanity and, humanity's struggles and the movements of humanity ultimately upward in consciousness. And the half-god is really going to inspire you. Again, he's speaking with this tremendous echoing voice, booming voice, and he's moving in this very dramatic, powerful way, and he's really exhibiting his strength and nobility, and he fills you with that same feeling. It's just like, for example, you could see individuals, even within our history, such as like Alexander the Great, who was considered a half-god by his followers and even by himself, and, the son of Zeus, the son of Amun. And he had this power, right? Like he would go before the soldiers on the battlefield when they're arrayed, and they're getting ready to charge, and they're massively outnumbered, and yet he would ride back and forth, and he would give a speech, a rousing speech, inspiring everyone to essentially put their life on the line for the greater good of Greece or the Macedonians, or, for their own glory, right? This is the right thing to do, and therefore, we must all charge in and fight. Right, so it's this very intense sort of militaristic zeal that this is what's right to do. We have to carpe diem. We have to seize the day, and we have to rise up from mediocrity, and we have to sort of grab life by the horns and just put everything on the line and charge out heroically and attain success. And you see, these many different movies have these types of speeches, like Braveheart or something like that, where Mel Gibson is there and he's shouting, they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom. And everyone starts going, yeah, and even in the theater, it erupts and people are going, yeah, we're going to fight those English or something like that, right? And, and so people become inspired, and then when people leave the theater, they feel all jazzed up, I'm going to go out and I'm going to conquer the world. I wish I could lived in those ancient times. Right now I just jump on my horse and pull out my sword and charge. All right. So that's really the feeling that the half-gods give you. You feel inspired. They're great heroes. They're great leaders, and they make you want to charge into life and tackle all the problems and, burst through all the obstacles and really establish human society on a much more solid platform in a way that's beneficial to other people. It's not that you want to, seek glory for yourself or something. That's not what the half-gods are really interested in. They're interested in establishing the good of humanity. And it's more of like compassion and nobility drives their intensity of purpose, and that gives them this power of inspiration. And so, like, say for example, you have a general is about to go against overwhelming odds, and he's feeling like a lack of courage and a lack of fortitude, and he doesn't know if he should do this. Maybe he should just turn away. But if he does, then his kingdom will be overwhelmed by barbarians or something, and they'll destroy the temples, rape the women, massacre everyone, enslave the children, slay all the men. But he's outnumbered 10-1. How can I do this? So he'll go to his Egyptian priest, and he'll ask him to summon, a great hero from the past, right? And there he is sitting in the smoky room with the priest, and the ritual is being performed, and the priest is sincere, and he knows his ritual. He's in the proper consciousness, and everything is in order. And then all of a sudden, boom, the room starts to shake, right? And this huge, this powerful force is there in the room, and then all of a sudden, this kind of smoky figure appears. It's a man, standing in armor, cloaked in a red cape, the color of blood, and he's got fire in his eyes, and he's wearing this beautiful, golden armor. He has celestial weapons, spears and swords, and all these things you've heard, in the stories, right? He's got the shield with Medusa's head, like Perseus. He's got the winged boots, and all these different things. And he's moving, with tremendous power. Stand up, like you there, sitting behind the priest. And he says this powerful, echoing voice: "You, general, stand! I want to see you. Come before me." Right? And the general kind of comes before the vision, and he's like, "I see in you power. I see in you heroism. You have the power to defeat this army. You can do it. Right? And I'm investing you with this power. Let's go. Do it. Fight for your people. Win victory." And immediately this general feels, my gosh, I'm filled with this power. It's within me. And then he says goodbye, and the ritual ends, and he marches outside of his tent, throws open the tent, and all of his soldiers are out there looking forlorn, and immediately, he stands there and stops and looks them all in the eyes, and then he just raises his sword, right? And immediately they all see, this tremendous power within him. He's like, we're going to act now, tonight, we're going to invade their camp, right? And he's filled also with the wisdom. The God gives him the wisdom of how to do this. The strategy of what he's going to do. And the concern also, he's looking at his men, and he feels not only the power to win and the drive to win, and the confidence to win, but he sees in them, the need to win. He looks in every man, and he sees, their hungry children, or the wife that they're worried about at home. Or their aging parents that are there, that could die at any moment if this army invades. And he reaches into those men and makes them feel the need to fight, not out of like boasting sort of like pride or anything like that, but out of a desperate need to protect and to help, the people that they care for, right? And he inspires within them the desire to lay it all on the line, and to also, the inspiration that they'll be victorious, that they'll be sort of blessed by the gods with the power to actually overcome these overwhelming odds and to rise above the station of a normal man. If you look in these different speeches of these, like whether it be in Braveheart or whatever it may be, usually the speech, what's so rousing about it, it's the idea that you can become something greater than yourself, that you can rise out of the mediocrity of a normal life. I think in that Braveheart movie, the whole thing was like, okay, you can die, if you leave the battle, you'll live, right? And you'll basically die, 50 years from now in a bed, but you'll give it all up for one chance to come back and tell the English you can take our lives, but you'll never take our freedom, right? You can rise beyond the mediocrity of being a normal man and actually stand up for something greater than you and rise greater than yourself, and seize this opportunity to do it. And that's really what a half-god is. He's not just a man, he's greater than a man. And he represents that power within man to rise, to become something greater than what he would normally be. And that's what the association or the sort of the summoning of the half-god does. It fills you with that power to rise to something greater than you could ever be. So thank you very much for listening. If you found value in this, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on iTunes, please visit srisachinandana.com/iTunes and leave a positive review. Thank you again, and we hope you'll join us next time on Gods, Demons, and Magic.